Yeah.
A lot.
That's, I'm in video locking, so I don't know the lock.
This up. So you wanna go into.
No, as you get older, it's necessary.
I remember.
So the webcam, I'm guessing, unless.
And you know, then there were those who could keep the room up all night with our storm.
That's worse.
Okay, so try the other one.
Nights, most of the time we
And you'll- budget- Oh, that's not it either. OBS is always a weird thing.
That's what I thought Zach was using earlier.
OBS, which one is your? Which one is your camera?
I don't know.
Your-
Like, yeah, me too.
So this seems to be this, yeah, this
Yeah.
is that right here. It's not
We-
that.
I can see you well, Chaz.
Hi there. We're trying to get it figured out.
Yeah,
Okay, so what I did to do this was this, and then you just bring it down. I just brought it down eventually and kept fussing down here
Okay.
and got it to come down to this thing. Oh, see, now it's down here. So you just keep kind of dragging it down till you get it down there. And then
Alright.
when you want to come back up here, you just push it back up.
All right.
Does that make sense? What you do?
Makes sense.
Much more.
Terrible.
Some of these make it.
So I'm asked me about this.
You're awake.
Up here. Yeah.
Oh, Lord, now you're showing us too. Okay. Means I had to stay awake. Okay. I have to stay awake, I have to behave.
There are.
Eventually, and I'm good. I need to get up and run. Anyway.
Okay, for the people online, we're gonna be having dinner for about half an hour, and so if you wanna chill and come back at 6:30, that would be great, unless you wanna bring a plate and have dinner with us here. I mean, you know, virtually. It's up to you, okay? All right. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious and Holy One, bless this food to our use and us to your loving service, keeping us ever mindful of the needs of others. Bless the hands that set up for us this day. Bless the hands that made this food. Bless the hands of all of those who do not have enough to eat this day. All this we ask and give thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
There's a carrot machine and water over here in the coffee bar area.
Yeah, they had dinner. They had dinner for half hours.
Did you get some this week? Okay. Like, go on, I see how it is.
I did, I did.
Yeah. Abby did it for sure. Covering everything.
Yeah, I'm
Keeping
not
it warm.
in this second.
And look at you on the shower I made.
Okay.
Yeah, Benedict.
Yeah, you're right.
I just wanted to see.
Let's see who's hungry.
See what it was.
Ready.
We don't have that.
You will soon enough.
It's Mediterranean.
Yes, it's like the Mediterranean, no matter.
Hummus and rice and vegetables. You have some with cheese, anything with product.
Well, that's important.
All that stuff. Wow, roasted vegetables. Cast 1,000 sheets out here. Wow. Look at that. Please, please.
Please, everybody, come.
Okay, you know what? Nobody ever starts when you do that, so I'm just gonna do it.
Proud of you.
Of course.
My apologies. And I just didn't want to go first.
It's tea time.
We could turn down the heat.
It's nice and warm.
I got it.
Hello, Dean Joe.
Hey, how are you?
I didn't touch.
Just everybody be careful of this wire, please.
Yeah.
Let me move that for right now. Yeah, let's move this for right now. That way we don't have to worry about it. I'm happy to report that I have video of my grandson who by the age of 2 still wasn't walking. Now he's 2 years, 4 months, he's running. That video just in. The best thing I could ever see. Sidewalks. I'm saying when. That's what I heard, super slow.
All kinds of time.
Well,
Are you tired of snow yet?
It's 73 degrees at my house.
Oh,
sounds terrible.
I know.
Wonderful.
Oh, wonderful.
Never.
Although it's supposed to be 60 there.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the Midwest.
All this.
Like the weather's been around 5 years.
Really good.
Hey.
The presence of someone, pardon me?
By the way.
I'm giving her a hug.
Want some candles there?
Duly elected.
Yeah, I just saw, I was just at. Oh, yeah. And I was with Phil.
Yeah, so, yeah, he's quite vociferous about his. Which I appreciate.
I do too, I do too. Well, at least normalizes it.
Yes, that's right.
My husband and I have been saying it feels like we graduated from high school and going to college. We don't really know what to expect. We know we're gonna have a lot of fun and it's gonna be really great. We don't really know anything else about
But you don't even know
it.
what
And
might
everything is
last.
so different. You're like, oh, it's so different and oh, it's so different. Oh, it's so big and oh, and I'm like. Oh, okay.
Luckily.
Well, did you get it today?
Yeah, I know. Never know who's gonna be around. So I
Right.
got a tour.
Yeah. The best support guys of all.
I've been touring all day.
But we had great lunch.
Had great lunch. I don't eat nothing else. Eat already ate twice.
You only eat fruits today? Is that the rule? Where'd you have it? Cakes. It was so delicious.
They're telling us we may even get a,
I get so much. And we get
Trader Joe's at least on it.
Now, do you
And,
think?
I think, do we still just have the two, one at Wood Parkway and the one over on Hit Row and 119th?
Yes.
And they said 10 years ago, we should have 5 at the end.
Why?
We've been waiting to spring.
You like?
Yeah.
You like it?
Yep. Messy.
Late.
Yeah, why there isn't a Trader Joe's.
Yeah, I wonder where they put it.
Well, there is that too.
And do they compete with, do they want to be
Maybe they can-
so far away from like a Whole Foods? I don't know.
Oh,
Because there's a
well.
Whole Foods and. It's like, oh, talking about Trader Joe's? Yes.
Susan, that's your idea of the thing, you really got it. I'm just saying, I'm just saying. Well, I'm glad you look like this.
You did your actual. We did, I got it over last. We had snow. And we have made us. My daughter went back to the. My kids were all private. The reason they didn't go back to school. And then my. Oh, was the bird show? Not about his signs, but he can tell. Oh, my goodness.
I just talked about it.
You want me to do it?
You're-
Do you have everything?
Well. We could turn it. Teaching support.
Yes. Get a lot of friends over
Good way to. That's the, yeah, that's. Look at that. It's here. Yeah, that's. Okay.
Hear what's going on. Introductions. I can just.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, then, yeah, I want to visit my.
Yeah.
What's there?
Yeah.
Because are they representing different? They're not. Okay, so it's like.
Yeah, though.
And how long they've been around? All right.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am very pleased to introduce to you all the Most Reverend Melissa Skelton. I first met Melissa at the Filipino convocation in Vancouver, I think.
That's right.
That's right. And so, and I thought, oh my God, she's really, really smart, and oh my God, she's funny. So, but you were also much beloved by your people. And so I saw that there and the evidence of that, you know, you coming out of Olympia and being
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
being there provisional after all of that.
Right.
So, but your claim to fame is your work on, you know, the College for Congregational Development. And we've asked her here, this has been a labor of Chaz mostly. He's done the heavy lift on this. Asked her here, given all the stuff that we've been doing, like last year with Walker, at the Joint Standing Committee Diocesan Council retreat, and then also a clergy gathering. Given kind of the trajectory of everything, and with Bishop-elect Amy coming in, it just made sense to come together and start talking about this as these two governing bodies come together. And I'll let Melissa explain more, but the whole point is to try to get you all around the same page, on the same page about moving the diocese forward. It's so easy to have, you know, get a new program and then it drops, right? So how do we put sustainability behind this? So Melissa's going to walk us through that tonight. That's the main purpose for tonight, I think.
Yes.
And then, but she'll explain it better than I can. And then tomorrow we'll go into a deeper dive with more people.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Gosh.
So please welcome my friend Melissa Skelton.
Yes. But hello, Kansas City.
Sorry. So great to be here. It is my second time here. I was here because I'm the bishop visitor for the Society of Catholic Priests. You don't know what that is? Yes, Chad.
Yeah, I guess those two over there too, yeah.
That's right, yeah, so, so I've had Kansas City barbecue twice now. And I'm delighted to be here, to talk about congregational health. But first, let's do introductions. And I think, do we want the folks on, who are
Yes.
online
Yeah.
to disclose themselves?
Come alive, y'all, come alive.
You're online, could you turn on your cameras?
You could turn on your
There's Eric.
cameras.
There's Eric.
There goes the
Those are all
end.
in circumstances, yeah, where people don't want to turn on their cameras, but.
But that depends on what they looking like, right?
Yeah. What your rooms look like.
Chris, Chandler,
Hello.
We invite you to turn on.
Regina,
Great.
Catherine.
So even. what-
Kathleen does not want to turn.
No, that's Kate, that's Kate.
That's
Frank.
Kate.
Kate
Kate
Frank.
Even though it
French.
takes time, let's kind of come together by going around, and we'll start with folks on the screen. Your name, whether you're on council or standing committee, and how long you've been doing that, and your parish. So I'll just call on the folks on the screen. Chris, would you begin us?
I would be glad to. Good evening, everyone. Sorry I can't be there in person. I just got home from work. My name is Chris Morrison. I'm a parishioner at Grace and Holy Trinity. Glad to host tonight. I'm in my 6th and for now final year on Diocesan Council.
And your parish is?
Here, the cathedral.
Oh, it was here, the cathedral. Okay, thank you.
Grace and Holy Trinity.
Okay, thanks so much. Chandler, please.
Chandler Jackson, priest in charge at St. Matthew's Ozark, and I am the diocesan registrar and on-council.
Thank you, Chandler. Mark?
Mark Galis. I serve as diocesan chancellor. I attend the cathedral. This is my 4th year as the chancellor.
Thank you. Regina?
Hi, I'm Regina Behrens. I'm with St. Mary Magdalene in Belton. I'm on Diocesan Council, and I think this is my 4th year. I'd have to look it up.
Okay, thanks. Anne?
I'm a parishioner with St. Paul's in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm associate treasurer, and I've been doing this about 15 minutes.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Eric?
Eric Rhodes from the Standing Committee. I think I'm entering my 4th term. I'm from St. Anne's in Lee Summit. 4th year, not term.
And Catherine?
Catherine Mansfield. It's my 1st year on Diocesan Council, and I am the curate at Christ Church Springfield.
Thank you. And Kathleen?
Kate, and I'm from St. Paul's Clinton, and this is my 3rd year on the Diocesan Council.
Great. Let's go around the
Oh, and
table.
then Phil.
Oh,
Phil's
He's not back there yet. He went to eat. He went to eat, he didn't come back home.
It's dark.
Yeah.
We'll catch up with them later.
Thanks, your bishop provisional.
Curtis Hamilton, at Grace and Holy Trinity Cathedral, 1st year on standing committee.
My name is Robert Higgy, on the standing committee. I work full-time in St. Louis Health System, and I priest in charge at Christ Church, Warrensburg.
Okay.
I'm Amy Doppelmo. I'm your bishop-elect.
Yay!
Yeah.
Shirley Bolden, St. Augustine's, Diocesan Council, and 2nd term. Second term.
Third year.
She's looking for confirmation. That's right.
Oh, whatever. Okay, that's who I is. Okay.
I'm Amy Garcia. I'm from Church of the Redeemer in Kansas City, and it's my 1st year on council.
Chaz Marks from St. Augustine's and diocesan transition missioner. I'm not on either body.
Let's see.
Tim Coppinger, St. Paul's Lee Summit, my 1st year on standing committee.
I'm Robin James. I'm the rector at Grace Liberty, and it's my 2nd year on standing committee.
Susan Roberts, I'm Vice President, Diocesan Council. I work full-time for St. Luke's Health, and so that chapel is secure. Second is my 2nd term.
Thank you.
Jean Long, I am the Dean of the Northwest Metro Deanery, so I serve on Diocesan Council, and I also serve at St. Andrews in Kansas City.
Brittany Claire Savage, I'm the Assistant Rector at St. Paul's, Kansas City, and the chaplain at St. Paul's Day School. And this is my I'm in my 1st year.
On council.
On council, thank you. Sorry.
My name is Ann Bride. This is my 2nd year on Diocesan Council, and I'm from St. James in Springfield.
And she's an excellent senior warden.
Okay, all right. That's important.
Hasn't done anything yet.
I'm Isaac Pierjock, rector at St. James in Springfield.
and it's my first year on Senior Committee. I'm Father Joe Pierchak. I'm the rector of Grace Church in Carthage, Missouri, and I am the dean of the Southern Deanery, so on council.
And I didn't get our
Feels
name
bad,
right,
yeah.
Susan, I couldn't get Orange Juice,
Oh,
Christian,
whatever.
West Region,
Just
it was
say
also some South.
And
For the merge.
Phil is back. Who you are, what parish, council, or standing committee, and how long?
Okay, I'm Phil Metz. I'm from St. Philip's here in Joplin. I'm on I'm on the Diocesan Council, and this is my second term. I didn't run for election. The bishop was nice enough to ask me to serve. So that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, so Diane has mentioned some stuff about me. Just let me give you a little bit more background. And then I think what I'd like to start with, so here we are. So this is the overview. Diane's had communicated with me that her desire for tonight would be that we focus on how congregational development can be a thing the governing bodies can kind of get behind with longevity and consistency. And I want to hear, you've had discussions. Here's what I understand you've done. You had a retreat recently. It was a joint retreat, right?
Correct.
In which Father Chaz taught some stuff from the college about congregational development. That'd be one thing. Amy did life cycle model. Did I get that right? Did you do the iceberg, Chaz, as a part of that? Okay, good. So you do that, that'll be fun. And the diocese is in the middle of the FaithX congregational assessment tool. Some of those results have come in, more to come, but that's not been, those results, because they haven't all come in, haven't been distributed broadly yet.
Correct.
That assessment tool was taken by various numbers of various congregations. Did every congregation have somebody take it?
Not yet. We're at about half of the congregations had somebody take it.
Okay, so this is like, goes a while, right? So that's not been a thing. They've taken it. Different numbers have taken it in different congregations, depending upon many things. So that's hanging out there, but just having done that says congregational assessment, self-assessment is an important priority because that takes energy to do that. And the work done by the Bishop Provisional, I was a Bishop Provisional, really has focused on congregational life. Bishop-elect is bought into that priority. I'm just checking it out. Bishop-elect, 100%. Okay, there we go. On a scale of 1 to 10, about how bought in are you? So it appears to be a priority for the diocese. Okay, so that's the background, me. So I was minding my own business. No, not really. So I came to the Diocese of Olympia. So initially I was curate at a church after being ordained, a kind of middle of the road church in Cincinnati, Ohio. I went off, oh, look at this thing.
Took me a while to figure it out. I was pushing
Pear-shaped.
things.
I'm not really happy with that.
You look great.
I look kind of pear-shaped. I went off from that parish to be the kind of head of administration for General Seminary when it was a going thing. While there, I did a bunch of work in congregational development. And then did more work in that, both congregational and organization development. When I went to Olympia, I was part-time rector of a kind of what in Western Washington passed for an Anglo-Catholic parish, a higher church parish. I was part-time that, and I was part-time canon for congregational development and leadership in the Diocese of Olympia. The bishop then said, I want substantial, comprehensive congregational development training because one of the 3 priorities of the diocese is congregational development. His for stewardship of all resources, congregational development, and people under 35. Those were his 3 things. And so, and I want to launch it in 6 months. So after my hair turned this color, I said yes. And as a consultant first, I did that work. And it was done really simply we launched 2 versions of the college. It's a week-long training, one in the summer and one during the weekends, kind of Friday, Saturday. In short order, within 5 years, most of the congregations had sent teams to that training. Right from the get-go, other dioceses sent people to us. And people from the Anglican Church of Canada, because I had contacts over the border, also came. And pretty soon, other dioceses started running the program. The program was created to be a gift to the church because it costs money to put it on, and we wanted to give away the content and the process stuff. So currently, there are 10 Episcopal dioceses doing the program. And I'm not here to sell the program. So, and over the years, it's been maybe 12, 13 years since it happened. And it was kind of the reason I was elected both bishop and then archbishop in the Anglican Church of Canada, because they wanted to focus on this too. So in the meantime, I guess the other piece I would say is in the development of the college system, we now have an initiative convening bishops to talk about congregational development in their diocese and how to focus on it on a diocesan level. So I've heard a lot of bishops sort of wondering about how to do that. And then, you know, to the side of all this, there's been lots of consultation stuff and everything on this very same subject. So that's my background. I came back after retiring in Canada and was Bishop Provisional in Olympia for a couple of years. And now we're trying to help the organization of this college match the size that we are now. So the size model applies to the program itself, that we're just way beyond what we can produce by the number of dioceses. And we've probably got about 5 to 8 waiting in the wings to start the program. We've got a training network, about 75 trainers in Canada and the US. And so it's getting to be a rather large thing to do, but still diocesan. Started with the diocese. It's not owned by the national church. Thanks be to God.
You're not the one there today.
That's right. Thank God. So it's diocesan based. In other words, it was meant to help congregations, leaders on a congregation to kind of create a common language in the diocese, and to have groups and teams of clergy and laity together, helping each other work on their issues and their hopes and dreams related to congregational development. So, the other thing I wanted to share with you before we get to what your question, you know, what would you like to do tonight, is this thing about viability and vitality. And you've already seen some of this, but I just thought I would, are there enough copies for everybody? Okay. So will you help me, Chaz, with this? This is just that definition that Chaz drew on, as well as just a reminder. I thought, you know, just summarizing some of what's kind of in your drinking water right now. So it's that definition of what congregational development is, with a little more information. I don't know if you did this about what is healthy, faithful, and effective need.
Is there a PDF for those online?
I'm taking pictures and sending it to the
Oh,
chair.
fabulous. Thank you so much, Ron. So that's coming around. We'll come back to that. But then I went and looked at the Faith X assessment, what those 11 areas are. And then I also, just to kind of have it in one place. And then what I wanted to tell you, and it's something you probably already know, but it does frame up some of what we might talk about. It's, yeah.
Smooth.
It's dangerous. I know it's a very precarious 3-legged thing. Yeah, I got it. Is this thing about viability and vitality in congregations. So viability is all those measures and things and indicators that have to do, is it long-term sustainable? It's like money, property, people, the neighborhood, this external and internal viability. Is the neighborhood growing or is it kind of shrinking? What's your trajectory? What is a congregation's trajectory in terms of money? People who show up or who are touched in some way by the congregation, the property, and it's either drain or needs as you're thinking about it. So viability. And then there's vitality, and that's all the stuff that helps to foster the nurturing of people in the Christian faith. Things like formation, worship, et cetera, et cetera. So I have colleagues or folks connected to the college. We've got a lot of canons to the ordinary, people doing congregation vitality work in these dioceses, Maryland, Atlanta, Michigan, Indianapolis, and on and on and on, Spokane, Olympia, these things. And so some of these folks have been doing a lot of, literature review and actual research on the ground about what's the relationship between viability and vitality. And in Atlanta, my colleague Sally Alray they did this whole thing. They did their own version of FaithX and then put on that these other measures, these objective measures. And here's what they found. There is zero correlation between vitality and viability. In other words, a place can be viable and have zero vitality. Think about it. And endowment. So a place can have vitality and have very little viability. So the learning here is, so I just spent some time on them last week talking about this. And she just did a big presentation, Diocese of Atlanta. And so what they're saying, and this is my colleagues in Michigan as well, it's that the two need to be worked on simultaneously. It can't be done in a stepwise. You got to pick some things to do here as well as here. Interesting, huh? Isn't that interesting? So I thought I would share that learning with you and to give them credit, because I did not do that research. So that just frames up some things. I'm going to come back to this beautiful picture that has to do with congregational development in just a little bit after we generate what you would like to, what specific questions you might have. I work with these darn things all the time, sadly. In terms of what related to your role, congregational development, any old thing you want to cover tonight. In fact, talk with each other about this just for a couple of seconds. Just talk with each other. What would be some things you think, let's talk about this tonight? You think? She said zero correlation. Zero. Yes. Sorry, you folks online, just think about it, I guess. I don't know how to put you in groups. Shoot, I don't know how to put you.
There is zero.
I think between your now, there's no 7.
I know, I have lady
Around zero. Or I would. Now there's real hope, and so. I think beginning to look at what did we do well to track people. We want to figure out how.
I've only touched one with my
So we did that and.
Their names were.
They noticed.
It's a standard church lady. That is no problem.
It's not what I've always thought.
Because in the strawberry wrapper.
It doesn't look like has done a lot of you build it, they will come mentality of. With your need, you can't.
Nobody else buys that.
Then you become more mind.
Grandma one day and the candy dish upstairs. And applesauce.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Okay.
I was thinking you guys heard you would be called a pig. Yes, yes.
It's just, it's.
Okay, let's come back together. All right, let's go to the screen first. Any specific questions you want to see addressed tonight? I've written up two things already. How can our focus on congregational vitality, viability be sustained by the governing bodies? That's what I heard you say. And then before I came, Diane said, please explain to us what congregational development is as you think about vitality and viability. In what way is it different? Why all this terminology? Please clarify. What else? What other questions do you want to make sure we?
Anybody on this, anybody on the
Yeah,
screen?
screen. Anyone on screen? It'll only hurt for a moment to ask a question. Come on, Phil, you've got a big smile. Ask a question.
I'm just listening. I don't know enough to ask a question at this point.
Okay. Anybody else? Regina or Kate or Chris?
I would say, how do we make people want to come to church? And I think in our congregation, I mean, by definition, they're there, but how do we make them want to come back?
Good comment. Thank you. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Oh, look at that. There's a hand up in the room. Yes.
I would like to know, you have people coming and are committed to coming to church, but are totally not invested in actually doing the work of helping the church be viable.
And how to, and helping. And say more about what's that work?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about?
Well, like, even just helping with the different ministries or trying to do a ministry, I mean, you have like 5 people who might help you out.
Yeah.
But you've got a congregation on your roster, so, 50 people. And 5 people are doing the work of that. It's like, how do you get them invested and want to actually come to events that the clergy might prepare for them?
Invested, great.
Would that be related to like the difference between attending and discipling? I don't know if that's possible.
What else? Thank you. I wrote that down. Yes.
Did we define the difference between vitality and viability?
I mentioned it briefly.
But when you said it, they felt like, never mind, I apologize.
Yeah.
No, they felt like synonym, I don't know. A synonym, like it's okay. Oh, I think, we're good.
It's really all right. Other questions, other things on your mind? Yeah, Curtis.
I will speak for myself. I know if these things are that separate, I know which side I do much easier for lots of reasons.
Yes.
How do you get people to buy in on both? Because it sounds like just, what I said over here is the chicken and egg method of Episcopal evangelism is alive and well. If you build it, they will come.
Yes.
This flies right in the face of that. And I know for myself, I just, honestly, no, I'm way more on the I'm not on the viability side as much as I need to be. I'm always, where my ministries and where my gifts have always been on the
Vitality.
vitality
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
So anybody who knows me, I think would nod at that, but.
Well, my friend Ellen Ekebag in Michigan says viability is about alignment. Now, that doesn't sound like a fun word, but it means where some of the pieces match up in a way, like money, building, number of people, match up in a way that gives you the potential to keep alive. Vision and mission, that it's about matching up. Vitality, is a more, there's so many different pieces to vitality. When for us, worship's right at the top, of course, but right with formation, building the glue in a community, glue building among people. You were just talking about that, the gathering and regathering. So and then you have to wonder, Bishop-elect and Bishop Provisional, sort of like, as you think about diocesan focus and resources and time and energy, where do you put that? What's the right way to tackle both of those? Tackle sounds footballish.
You're in the right part of the world with that.
Oh, right. Oh, exactly. I'm so sorry you guys didn't win. I'm pulling for you. I said, oh, Philadelphia.
I kind of go back to the basics of the word vitality and viability.
Yes.
And viability is just basically, Google's always got to go through, right?
Yeah.
Able to be strong, active, and to reproduce, okay?
Yeah, so-
The potential.
Yes.
So, but I think a lot of the work we do is in the vitality, as we were talking about, because it does attract people and
Yes.
to teach them there. And then to recreate from themselves.
Yeah.
So as a work, mostly finding ourselves in the vitality, the storytelling, the activity and the actions, so that people actually then create for themselves. That's getting my head around it.
Yes.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think both those, and if you look at least the results I've seen thus far from the assessment, is that the whole sustainability from this, again, people are self-assessing. They're self-assessing. The sustainability issues are very pressing, are they not?
Right.
Internal and external sustainability in that assessment. And so that, for me, that as a diocesan person, it sort of raises a question, like, how do we focus our resources appropriately in getting those places better aligned with these elements of their lives, while at the same time stoking the fire of vitality? Because I don't think you can just do one. I wouldn't just do one. But places where, the neighborhood is shrinking, and it's like 5 people meeting on a Sunday, big building, roof needing repair. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. What is are you about, Bishop-elect? Are you about closing parishes? Are you about convening parishes with similar problems and seeing what you can do around viability, or, what's the approach on that? If it appears to be a really pressing issues among your, and it may be regional, maybe in some places more than others. You probably know a lot about that, having done the visitations you've done.
And especially among some of the more rural congregations, it is an issue.
Yes.
The central deanery struggles,
Yes.
and the central deanery especially struggles.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So it might be like a regional approach. So a little bit later, I'll show you kind of a way to think comprehensively about any issue, but it's congregational developments.
Melissa?
Yes, Ann.
Question for you. Are we looking at the diocesan development as well as the parish development? Or are we considering that one whole thing?
So okay, so I'll just put that question there. We'll come back to it. I don't answer it. You are the governing bodies of the diocese.
I hear us using some of the same words that we always use.
Yeah.
Evangelism, finance, building.
Yes,
things like
yeah.
that. But is our product for the future the same product that we have always had, or Are we in a different market as we move forward? And if so, are we acting like that? Or are we still talking the same things that we've been talking about for the last 100 years?
I would love to hear your perspective on that. And we'll get to that,
I
yes.
think that my comment isn't really, it's more of a comment than a question.
Yeah.
And it follows on what Tim just asked, frankly. If we've been reading the ENS articles yesterday, today, so forth, they're coming out. We were changing on a bigger level than just the local level.
Yeah.
And so how do we incorporate what's happening on the wider church level into this conversation?
And just so everyone understands what you mean, give a little more detail on what's happening on a wider church level.
So if you've been reading ENS articles, the one I'm particularly referencing is the one where our presiding bishop announced the reduction in staff. Which frankly is mirroring what's going on in civil society right now. So I just think that we have to be really thinking about what's happening across the church.
I want to go back to the product. The product is not the same 100 years ago as today. The people doing the work is different. I mean, we have women ordination, we have the bishops. Today, we're dealing with society with different elements from construction, transgender people, gay people, all in prominent roles. Along with that, our congregations are speaking differently today. So we really take an honest look at the product we are, the people we are today, because we're not the Episcopalians 100 years ago.
Right, I agree with you completely.
We honestly look at our product somehow and what we are asking, what are we attracting and the result of doing it.
When you guys are saying products, sorry, I'm very lost. on what
Okay,
you're talking
product is being church in general. To me, the people, the priesthood, the education, the way you used to do congregation, the way you used to teach, what people saw. Okay, so what has changed in society and also our image, so you can't take a picture of 1950 and say that's us today. And look at our churches. So I mean, if we look at what we're doing, what attracts people. That's what I thought of when you said.
And I agree with you completely. But when we spend so much of our time and we have 5 well-sized parishes and the rest of us are medium or small.
Yeah.
We continue to think and function more in survival mode and not about what we are becoming as we move into the future. And so how do we handle the both end of those things and try to do it in a healthy manner?
Yes.
And I would still argue that we have to think about this in terms of what's going on in the wider societal context. Because we are shifting to, 1950 is looking more familiar all the time to me in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's.
How is looking a little more what was it you said? More.
Everything old is new
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're.
Everything being regurgitated.
Conservatism that we had moved out of.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah,
isn't
so-
Jesus' message the same from 2,000 years ago?
Well, and you
To
could
today?
say,
I mean, how it's heard is different, I think.
yes.
I
Yes.
also think that we have a very different style of worship and way of expression. And we are surrounded by several mega churches
Yeah.
that are completely a completely different style and are entertaining. Yeah. That also has been impacting us.
Yeah.
The medium age of television has moved into what people see, entertainment, all that, and how do we compete with that when we're so traditional, come together, our rituals and prayers and enriched, but it's not as impressive as a light show, okay?
Yeah.
And so they come
Yeah.
together.
We need to develop a reality show about
That's right.
church.
And go, Robin.
I think it's called Anthony Trollope, who I'm currently reading. Yes, Isaac.
But I've been trying to figure out how to word this in my head for a few minutes, but it piggybacks on the worship question. You know, if worship is such a critical element to vitality, and in most of our churches, worship looks very similar on a
Yes,
weekly basis.
yes.
What are those elements of worship that are or are not vitality producing or transformational?
Yes.
Here, so that we're not merely talking about an attraction to entertainment model.
Yeah.
And so for us down in Springfield, we're in the Mecca of the Assemblies of God. Every church is we're gonna show you something today.
Yeah.
And where, you know, how does worship in that way? How is our worship within our tradition?
That's right.
Something that can be, well, yeah, how does that play in?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes, such great questions.
One of the things I know when I looked at vitality is that I said that we have 7 new people join the church this year, okay, and they've been coming around. But when I asked the question, why, what does Christ Church have? It comes to the ritual, okay? It comes to the preaching.
Yes.
It comes to the diversity and openness of all are welcome.
Yes.
And also men and women and same sexes welcome and not judged.
Yeah.
And those are something that we have that we struggle with and taught these last 15 years. That is a hallmark of ours. And it's rooted into their worship, and people, they come on it and value it. So I think that's something that I think will show in the survey, hopefully, that we'll see some of that over and over again in all our places. I think is what I was just hearing, like, what do we have that's similar all across the
Yeah.
board? Anyway.
Really good. I'm glad we're talking about Episcopal identity. So the question of, are we talking, I want to go back to this first. You had a lot to say. You had a lot of questions, a lot of good things to explore. Are we looking at diocesan development as well as parish development? So I guess because you're the governing bodies, I think you are a partner with your bishops on how, given the resources, time and energy of the diocese, what do you focus on? What do you not focus on to facilitate some of this? You're in a position that others aren't, around diocesan development of a diocesan system that focuses, for one of its focus areas, on congregational development. And to that end, I just would, so this is a model, this is kind of some theory about this, and you'll see some of your questions in it.
It's might have you hold that up for you.
Oh, well, it's a human easel. So, I mean, it looks like, somebody said it looks like a hairball. It looks like a hairball.
Maybe you just didn't.
Show the
Curtis,
people.
yes. Yeah, come closer.
Try this. Does that work for y'all?
Yeah, hold it there for a second so we can
Got it.
literally digest it.
I will.
Chris is
Yeah, I'm
memorizing
writing
it.
some stuff down.
Taking a
Yeah.
picture.
Fine, look at him.
All right.
I love that.
Hey,
This
could
is
you
just.
hold it a little longer? Hold it just a little longer. I'm
You can do a
trying to write some
screenshot,
words
yeah.
down.
If Brittany could take a picture of it and share it like we did the previous one, that'd be fabulous.
Yeah, that
Brittany
would.
has turned into
here
the
you go.
media director for the.
It's bad.
Here
if
you
I'm in
go.
charge of your meeting. Thank
Oh,
you.
here you go.
I forgot how to turn on my TV. the other day.
It's this one,
You got it.
right here.
Yeah.
It's this one. Right there, yeah.
I was just chasing him.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is theory. It doesn't directly answer your question, but when you think about a diocese as a system, you know, that has component parts, what this might suggest is if one of the strategy means plans, goals, direction, focus, all those things. If you have a strategy of let's focus on congregational development, these things gotta line up to support it. And this is 30,000 feet, okay? In other words, you gotta have structures, and that by that I mean organizational structures. Like you might have a congregational development team in the diocese. You might have X, Y, or Z that's focusing on it. That's a team or something that works with the bishop-elect on. You might have processes. Let's say you think that one of the things that's important is preaching for congregational development is the development of excellent preaching at the congregational level. Well, then you have a process by which people become better preachers. So, or you might have different kinds of processes. I focused a lot on processes related to recruitment of people into ordination track. I want to get people who wanted to work organizationally in that. Leadership, you got to have, Chaz has to be bought in, which he already is. You know, you got to have other leaders who by inclination and by training are focused on that. Dynamics mean things like conflict, trust, human dynamics. We'll say more about that later. And then just the people enrolled in it. So the idea is any time you're working systemically, these things have to work together at that 30,000 foot diocesan level. I'd also say it's true of the parish. Not many people think this way in the parish, but and what's surrounding this is the culture of the organization. What would you say and the climate? What is the climate of this diocese right now?
Cold.
I mean, is it frightened? Is it anxious? Is it upbeat? Is it hopeful? Is it
Hopeful, yeah.
Yeah, that's my sense. I get that. And a culture mostly, I think, related to both this elected on the first ballot as well as the work of the bishop provisional, that the culture prior to that intervention, the bishop was different than it is now. Would you say?
Anxious at task.
Yeah, so you've got this interesting and supportive culture and climate, and all of this sits in the broader environment, which is the question that's being asked, and I've forgotten your name already. Robin's asking, like, how are we affected by these things that we do from the broader church or civic national environment? You know, how does this support, work against, or mean, you know, that's affecting it? So I took a shot at this when I was bishop about congregational development. Let me just read to you what I did here. Is
everybody good?
Everybody's good. So, and it doesn't quite match up, but so it's like strategies related to this. And so it was things like, I don't need to read it to you. It was things like having training in congregational development, some kind of comprehensive training in congregational development. Having practitioner groups. So that would be groups in parishes, clergy and laity potentially, of parishes that are up against the same issue. Be like your area that you talked about, your deanery that you talked, where you're convening them and they're actually sharing with each other what they might do to address the issue before them. A communication strategy where good news stories go out about what's going on in congregations. In fact, the first thing you hear in the e-list thing is congregational stories. We're going to say.
Well, I just had a thought looking at that diagram about just a relationship to family systems.
Yes.
And the reality that family system says that it's all triangles as well, right? So it just caused me to think that in terms of broader environment, right, the higher the anxiety gets in the broader environment, then the higher the anxiety is going to get within our communities. And that's one of the reasons why I think that's such an interesting diagram to think about, because it becomes really easy then to say, oh, well, if our to focus on process, for example.
Yeah,
And then the system kind of gets all sort of all in one corner and you become really good administrators, but you forget that pastoral care really matters, or you become so focused on pastoral care that you lose your perspective on process. I'm just using this as
Yes.
an example. So kind of the calm, when you look at the hairball, you think, oh,
Yeah.
that's a lot, but really a calm response to that seeks to hold it all within that bond.
Yes.
I don't know what else to
Yes.
say next, but it just seems like it has to all be held loosely, otherwise you are tempted into the broader anxiety.
yeah, and governance bodies can sort of help work with you around holding that together. Because you're not managing, correct? Governing bodies are not managing the diocese. Am I right? Yeah, I'm just checking it out.
I think that's the word viability, because that's the potential energy and successful.
Yeah.
Potential that keeps it together, if you can do it all at once.
But you can help work with Bishop-elect on how all these things are interconnected. I mean, just keep thinking about from your role. I mean, in terms of process, your meetings. You know, are you focused around what will be the priorities of the diocese? I know in Diocese of Olympia, it was like this lockstep meeting agenda that really didn't have to do with the priorities of the diocese. I didn't exercise a lot of control in that, but there's that. So for me, it was training, supportive communication, focusing on congregational development, practitioner groups, revising policies related to congregational development. I don't know what happens when a congregation here becomes less viable. Is there a canon that kicks in or no?
There's supposed to be, but currently does not.
So it's kind of like,
Just limbo.
It's in existence, but it requires people to take actions that they're not always willing to take.
okay, so it's kind
It
of.
would take
It's there.
an act of convention to do it, quite frankly, and people just aren't really willing to do that in a lot of cases.
There's like a 2 to 3
Yeah.
year process
Yeah,
before you get.
yeah, and because a lot of people don't want to do it because they want to say, okay, they're coming for us next.
Yes,
So.
yeah. Financial support for congregational development initiatives. I think you told me about a pool of money that's granted for that. So, and then leadership who are monitoring congregations and intervening when necessary. So it's just a thing to think about around the diocesan level, which is different than a lot of the questions you've got here are questions related to really parish development. So what congregational development is how to get from one place to another. So if you would say, you know, you've got these markers out here, what are some of the goals? At least we've talked, let's say, in a congregation or in a diocese, it's sort of vital discipleship programs. So in congregational development, it's about this. How you go from to, and how you do that in a way that activates engagement. So that the change you want to make, which may not be the same as the change that actually gets made after you do a process to get there, has skills and creates energy among the people for whom it matters, all in the way, so along the way. Congregational development has a bias towards engagement and, in a sense, democratization, what a word, within a parish setting for the sake of discernment. So that a lot of what we do in the college is related to teaching skills related to that. Fostering conversations and doing listening that then wants to take an action. So, so you might have goals related to viability or to vitality, but how do you get there? And what's realistic in terms of getting there around a congregation, that does not have endless energy? It's congregational development helps assist people in identifying where they currently are, the current state, where they want to get to, and then the steps they might take along the way to get there. Does that make sense? So it's so much about, how many have ever done training in facilitation skills? At all. Used to be a big thing in the church. Used to be a big thing in the church. It just, the training just sort of fell out of the church. But it's very much about conversations and facilitation and using models as a way to look at a situation, but then taking an action to learn before acting, rather than act and then learn afterwards. So that's a really important thing. So all these other questions, how do we make people want to come to church? One thing, you can't make them, but how do we assist God in gathering people into the Episcopal Church who are being called by God into the Episcopal Church? I happen to believe that Episcopal identity, now is our time. Now is our time more than any other. It's you know, the differences that we share, some of which Ron articulated, they're the very same ones that have been my bread and butter all along. Our place, as much as a West Coast church can be called, or Seattle church could be called Anglo-Catholic, we were neither viable nor vital. We might have been vital a little bit. The worship was very vital, but a little too fussy for my taste. So it was very vital. It had a heart of prayer in that place, but the building was falling down around its ears, and it was, they were not able to tell me what the deficit was when I went there. Within a month, it was 70K on an operating basis. I thought, oh, I need to hold on to that second job that I had as a consultant, which is what I did. First Pastor meetings were like, we're sorry to tell you this, but we can't pay you full time. Well, I have other ways to make money, luckily. But they were just, so that was, the vitality was what I worked on to get to the viability. But it was all this participative stuff, all participative open meetings, working on things, they're assessing stuff, feeding that back to them. It's this very participative kind of process by which they could own the direction we were going in, which they did. So how to make people want to come to church, I think that's you have to work on, to me, the vitality piece. And people have to be schooled in how to do that. Not everybody knows how to do that. And they have to be schooled in really how to become a congregational development skilled person. And then these are all congregational development questions, how to make people want to come to church. People aren't invested in helping. How do we get them more invested? What can we do to foster discipleship? How do we get people to buy in, want to work on these things? Are we looking at diocese? We did that. Is our product for the future same? So this is like a big conversation to have with your bishop-elect. What do we talked about what you might mean by product. I would say, is the experience in Christ that we have been called into as the Episcopal Church, is it, what about it needs to adapt to the current situation? What about it is so valuable? It absolutely needs to be retained, particularly in this environment. But I'm a believer in the congregations are where it's at. So I have a bias. I weep when I hear of a congregation that's going to simply be turned into a community center. There are lots of people in the church who think if we could just get rid of the congregations, diocese would have a lot of money to do good. I've heard people say this. If we could just close a bunch of places, we could have a lot of money to do a lot of social good.
That's just BS.
Well, exactly. I'd say let's just. So I'm a real believer because congregations are local. They're local ways that people are attracted to life in God or can be attracted. And God is doing a lot of that attracting. We just are trying to facilitate it. Now, does that mean that every congregation's life looks the same? Heck, no. To me, congregations that are the best of our Episcopal charism, and I do see it as a charism. I love the Paul Avis book called The Vocation of Anglicanism. That's a biggie for me. He's a Brit, that's true. He's a Brit, but it's beautifully focused on vocation. I don't know how many have ever read Simone Weil. She's a Jewish woman who became a Christian, although she refused to be baptized, who said that every tradition, even secularism, has a vocation, and the Christian church has a vocation. I think we've got a vocation within that, and it's not like any other. I mean, look at how many of your clergy, at least that I've met, are from other traditions for very good reasons. Came from other traditions for very good reasons. So how do you look at both the expression of that Episcopal charism, but the personality that comes from being a specific congregation in a specific neighborhood with a specific heritage made new by what it's doing today? So, but I think this is just a really important, how can there be both the deepening of that identity as well as experimentation? And how can you have, it seems like you've got a culture and a climate where people trust that they're not going to get killed for experimenting. Would that be the case?
I would say that's a recent thing, but it is still enough in the DNA that I think we still have to overcome some of that. And so, and I've been sitting here thinking, okay, having grown up in a smaller church in the diocese, that its relationship with the diocese was struggled at best, if not was downright hostile at times. How do we take what we know is this important work and encourage people to do it without looking like, oh gee, the folks over in the big building over here are going to make us do something, and if we don't do it, we're not going to be here in 5 years. I think some of that has broken in this diocese. It's not all gone yet. And if we think it is, we're kidding ourselves, I think, a little bit.
Well, you can't take years and years and years of diocesan abuse of congregations and turn it around in 3. I mean, I can tell you that it's a whole lot better than when I first started. But I see sometimes it raising its head a little bit, and I have to say to people, it's okay.
The institutional memory in me says, don't think that it's all sunshine and lollipop just because we've had 3 good years. And I think that mentality still exists. And I'm not.
No, it's really.
I'm not living there. I think I can do that very easily, and I think I come across that way. That's not my intention.
No, I think so.
To those dynamics.
Yes.
I mean, we are hopeful.
Yes.
Obviously, our election wouldn't have happened the way it did. If we weren't hopeful, right?
Yes.
And there's still that underlying cautiousness and just. They want to be trusting, but I'm not.
We're from the diocese, we're here to help. It
Still
doesn't
not
play as well as we might hope it would in the diocese. It plays better than it did 3, 5, 10 years ago, but it doesn't always play, and not in every place that's going to play as well as we hope it might.
That's great. So part of what you're doing, and so the FaithX work, sorry to be jumping around a lot, but the FaithX work is trying to get a beat on what's the current situation.
Exactly.
Congregationally. There's another, what's the current, so in famous practitioners in organization development, I think it's Ed Shine said, always begin where the system is. Start exactly where it is, not where you wish it were, where it is. You've got a new is, thank you. You've got a new is here, right? And sort of fleshing out that what's the current state more broadly is part of the task right now. And what's been handed to you, I want you to turn to this for a second. So this is, you got this is the picture. Folks online, it's that picture of the iceberg. So this is another piece of what congregational development is that this touches on. And it actually touches on the question of the product too. That, you know, we've got these definitions of what congregational development is. This is developed over the years. This is my definition, working with a lot of things. And then here, I just pulled this out of an organization development textbook, and I said that congregational development efforts often find that they must engage what is below the tip of the iceberg. So, you know about icebergs, anybody who's seen Titanic, that what's visible, you know, what you can count, what you can read, the diocesan profile is above the tip of the iceberg. What happened at the election is above the tip of the iceberg, or you're being elected. Now, what all happened, a lot of it's down here. So what's below is attitudes, beliefs, expectations, assumptions. Culture is down there, the culture of the diocese. It's stuff people can't name. And over time, you usually discover what it is by running into the iceberg. You know, by realizing, oh my gosh, they don't trust us as much as we thought. You know, it's what you're articulating, Curtis. But people aren't bad or wrong for it being unconscious. It's just like the human person. We've got a bunch of unconscious stuff. So do systems, so do congregations, so do groups and teams, so does an entire diocese. So often you're trying to sort of tease out what some of these assumptions are as you're doing a bunch of this work, much of which is above the iceberg here. So that's another kind of piece about this. So we can use words to describe what congregational development is. I can say it's how you get from to whatever the goal is. And it's this murky world of what it looks like. Now, I kind of fleshed this out just a little bit, make it more about, I'm going to do this tomorrow with the congregations. Yeah. Vitality, there it is. Yes. So here's, here it is.
I'm headed out.
Congregationally said. Yeah. Looks like that. Same picture, just I wrote some other stuff in it.
Catherine, can you take a picture of that and put it in the chat?
So up above are things like mission statements, value statements, all these things that we find necessary. Although we don't have as many mission and value statements in the diocese perhaps as we had wanted, right?
True.
So says the FaithX data that's already in. So job descriptions, policies, charts, roles, you know, reporting lines. And then down here is culture, who likes whom? What are the relationships? You know, how you can have a group or a team or a vestry or something. And then you find out, oh, the reason our work isn't going well is so-and-so really dislikes so-and-so.
Right.
Or so-and-so and so-and-so are involved. And that's more affecting the outcome of things than the agenda. Covert hopes and dreams. I used to work for the Toms of Maine company. Do you know who those are?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And it's just like, we will be kind to animals, we will be kind to human beings. And the reality was far from that. But we were just seized by these ideas of what we wished we were. Power and influence, assumptions and emotions. Often the emotional texture of things is more hidden and unconscious, particularly in our dear old Episcopal Church. So this is congregational development often kind of has to deal with this, or it has to work to kind of bring it to the surface. Thank you. So good. Let's give her a hand. Okay. So this is a big question. How do we incorporate what's happening in the wider church? It's a conversation to have. And like, how are you going to have the conversation? So this gets back to how to foster conversations. So it'd be just fine for us to just have at it. A way we teach in the college is the go-round. You know, the go-round where Each person gets to have a say, anybody can pass, where every voice gets heard around a big question where we want to learn something like that. Different ways to have conversations so we can hear deeply and figure out, is there a theme emerging that God might be a part of that is for us? Discernment. Yes. I love your expression. You're thinking about something.
Well, I am thinking about how we incorporate what's happening in the wider church.
Yes.
Because the immediate response has been fear. Why should I believe that what's happening there isn't going to happen here?
Yes.
And that's the difficulty probably every rector has in terms of trying to balance the conversation.
Yes.
To balance conversation has been ongoing since November.
Right.
And I know I am not the only congregation that's having that issue.
No, you're not.
And so how, I don't expect you to be able to tell me how to do this, because the reality is that we have to walk into the fear and we have to hear what people are afraid of.
That's right.
And then walk through the fear into the faith and on down the road, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. So how do we tease that out? I mean, you've got your theory, very interesting theory. I would agree with it.
So Robin, just balancing things out. I've heard a lot of excitement about the announcements yesterday. And I'll share in that. I share the excitement. So perhaps that's also a bit of a silo I find myself in. But excitement around naming, these are our priorities. So we're going to focus there. We're going to streamline our resources in the directions we've been discerning we would go. And for me, the cherry on top, and those directions are supporting local ministry on the ground. It is about evangelistic opportunity to spread the gospel. It is about formation. I think there's a lot of hope and excitement in that. And so I think as we're fostering the conversations and bringing all the sides and perspectives in, also naming the joy and benefit of that. Yes, we have to do the hard work and do the things we wish we didn't always have. And yet, we're pushing forward toward that goal.
And it's interesting because, having been to my first executive council meeting, having been through this discussion all this past week with the presiding bishop and the other members of council, even down to the budget, the budget, because that's to be planned every year, even though it's a triennial budget. And then the budget for the new triennium, he wants everything stripped down and built up to mirror what we say the priorities are. So Isaac, I'm gonna be calling you.
That's what we did.
Yeah. Yes.
I was just gonna say, like, a lot of this stuff too, right? I think one of the things that, I guess, in the context that we're in now too, is these governing bodies.
Yes.
One of the things we have to be open to is that, if we're gonna say we're serious about congregational viability and vitality, that's something new for us as a diocese.
Yes.
To directly say it so, that means things are going to have to change to actually support that. And of course, everybody wants to say, yes, we want to help congregations grow, but then when we're like, okay, well, we're not going to be able to give all of this money away to this. Instead, we'll have to reinvest it in these resources. Then everybody gets defensive and says, but wait a minute, we've always given that money, or we've always done that.
And especially with
So-
most of the, sorry, Gil, but especially when most of the resources are centered around people. My apologies, Joe.
No, you're good.
Yeah, but when a lot of that is centered around people, because that's, look at every church's budget, what, 50% plus is personnel? Diocese is in that ballpark, not quite that ballpark, but it's, doesn't miss by much. So you're dealing with the reality of when you're changing priorities, you're often dealing with people.
And so even this conversation, so this is a great the way I would say it is, this is a great governance conversation because it's at that level of how do we engage a priority that we've agreed, it seems that this is a priority, with how it impacts the diocese? What are some perspectives people could be bringing, given the fact that this other stuff is going on? What are the implications? So that it's posing those questions to this group in collaboration with your new bishop. That to me is like governance working at its best, you know, where she's not just trying to figure it out on her own, you know? Anyway,
I
yes,
just want to say what I noticed in this group. I noticed Robin brings up conversation. For instance, if your people listen, and Isaac said, well, wait a minute, I still have hope. And I have possibilities. I see newness. And Curtis, management of money, okay, saying, anytime you talk about money, it's gonna be disagreement, okay? And so the conversations, like, how do we have the conversations? How do we prepare for that? How do we reprioritize? So
Yeah.
thank you all, because you did the full circle of what we're doing by listening to the stories of what's important, and then figure out how we're gonna get there. So I thought that was nice.
again, it's kind of hearing all the voices and the expertise in the room. So again, if you go from, here, I'll just phrase it, from, you know, not knowing how to guide
That's why it's possible to get to
CD
where I
as
wanna get.
priority to knowing, you know, a plan.
What I was gonna say, if I've learned anything from the college,
Yes,
it's that the question matters.
that's exactly right.
And that the broader the question, the more work the question needs.
Yes,
So if the question is the product for the future the same as it was in the past?
yes,
It's too broad of a question. And so doing the work, the process of really making the question as concise as possible, and then spending time on that, just that one question, it brings the whole system forward. And you may not ever get to the two. You might start at the from and
Yeah.
have a really good question, and you might be working towards a two,
yeah,
but there's no guaranteed two, right?
Well, and in
Yeah.
the learning process, you may realize that the two is irrelevant to where.
Exactly.
because, yeah, that's
Because
right,
we're
because
not-
you may
we're-
discover something. That's exact, and so the whole thing of learning is you posing the question, but at least having a sense of, oh gosh, this is where we are, where we want more. And figuring out a way to ask the question, then having a listening process by which, where all the voices, if possible, get heard. And then you just listen for the themes. And to me, that's the Holy Spirit. And that's the Holy Spirit. Yes, ma'am, yes. Please, go
And
ahead.
that's what Ron did.
Yeah.
He listened for the themes.
Yes, so that's a process that can be repeated and over and over, and it can be done in a council. So this is congregational development, what we're just doing. It can be done in governing bodies, it can be done at the parish level. So, yeah, it can be done at the parish level around whatever the questions are, or whatever you decide you want to work on. Whether it's viability, a dimension of vitality, you know, how do we hone in and help people?
Where is
do
the
that?
landmines?
Yeah.
What gets us off course? What blows up on us? When do we, when it doesn't happen because we're not attentive to something?
I think that depends on whether you're in
We
West
don't learn
Missouri.
about that. When they realize that we just set a bomb off and we didn't realize it went off, because we're too busy not listening.
I think there may be an answer that's the same in all places, but I also think it depends on whether you're in West Missouri or in Olympia. I think the landmines that are there are systemic.
Yeah,
And so it depends on where your system is as to what the landmines are, or how your system responds to things. So I think it can be a both and.
I think some are predictable.
Some are predictable.
Anxiety,
Yeah.
fear, those are predictable landmines. Everybody, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what I'd like today? I'd like dramatic change in my life.
And
And to do it by myself.
But what they don't know is what Bishop Vogel said to somebody at St. Clemens in 1973,
That's
that
exactly.
you stepped on and ripped up 50 years later.
I was never asked a question unless you had an answer.
oh, and so you've got one?
Well, it's one of my
Me
answers
too.
to mine, when it blows up, we have something that's special as church, something that we have all the time, reconciliation,
Right.
healing, focusing, naming it, and going back and claiming it and moving through it.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that I think we don't often do enough of.
Yeah.
Forgiving and acknowledging, hey, I just screwed up. I need forgiveness.
Yes.
Can you forgive me? And really forgive me, not
Yes.
just lip service, right?
Well, that,
But we have that component.
yeah, Ed Shine, big practitioner in organization development says, mistakes are inevitable, learn from them. They're inevitable. If you're doing, you're gonna make mistakes.
That's right, that's right.
You just have to learn from them.
If
and
you're not
see-
making mistakes, then you're not trying.
Yeah,
Correct.
and then if it's a grievous, if it's a grievous mistake, yeah, there might be some apologizing and reconciliation needed, but it's part of the doing, it's part of the doing. Yeah, you just, don't be afraid.
I think part of the doing for us is also coming at it from a trauma-informed care.
Yes.
Yeah, like Bishop Diane was talking about, diocesan abuse.
Yeah.
And I think that is so deep-seated
Yeah.
that some of our leadership needs to come from that trauma-informed care
Yeah.
and really hear people's pains, recognize them, affirm them, and help us move through them.
Yeah. So it didn't all get solved here.
Yeah, it just-
Yeah,
I can't,
yeah. Well, that, and I find people want to talk about it when they want to talk about it. So my own diocese, different situation, but much more than I would have thought from the previous bishop. And people needed to wait a while to tell me, or individuals would tell me when I had no idea it was coming, and I'm not sure they knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's, they'll just tell you when they're ready to tell you. Is someone who hasn't spoken want to make a comment? I just want to make sure.
Or anybody online.
Anybody online? Okay, thank you. Wish you were here in the room,
We
sorry.
miss you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to look. Our style of worship versus what we're surrounding. Yeah, so a lot of this about who we are as Episcopalians. The best part of that. So one of the most used little designs we do in the college is a exercise on, you haven't done it yet, on Episcopal identity. And if anything was taught in the college that is then taken back into parishes, more than anything else is on that. Because people don't really know what it is and they want to talk about it. So I've learned that people are dying to talk about Episcopal identity, the best parts of it. The best parts of it.
Something I say a lot, we got something to say about being a Christian in this part of the country especially, right
And
now.
what would you say that is, Curtis?
I think it's a way it doesn't exclude the way other forms do. What you're seeing in Christianity, it's hard to say, and I've grown up in the Episcopal Church, but it's kind of come into focus recently in that it's the piece that 3 women bishops and leadership positions, soon to be bishops in leadership positions, is not what we see. A lot of what you hear on the Christian right is coming out of male voices.
Yeah.
Male heterosexual voices, cisgender voices.
Yes, yeah.
So, it says that there's a way to be Christian that doesn't exclude, but tries to bring everybody in. Doesn't always succeed. We have our struggles. But you can be Christian and still want to bring people in instead of trying to wall yourself off from society. It's possible to engage society and be a productive part of society as a Christian, instead of just walling off and saying, it's all about me and mine.
Yeah.
I think that's at least a piece of it. I think there's more to it, but that's certainly a piece of it.
Yeah, I maybe it was Ron or somebody. Liturgy that was not invented 15 minutes ago. It's got heritage roots. You can ask anything. Loving the questions. Affirming, open, inclusive. And it's different for evangelicals on the Canterbury Trail. I guess we used to call them that. And Roman Catholics who have just had enough with the Roman church. And it's really helpful to practice speaking to both those groups, to simulate what it's like for a Roman Catholic, former Roman Catholic, or they're never former Roman Catholics in my, they're just in the Episcopal Church.
You still hold guilt.
That's right, about what you say. And you know, how you welcome. So some of what we do, what I'm gonna do with the parishes tomorrow is look at this model called Gather, Transform, Send, and look at that, the gathering portion of that model, which has to do with inviting, greeting, orienting, incorporating, and actually seeing how they assess themselves on that and working on that. But being clear about Episcopal identity and a congregation's identity. The history of St. Augustine's, for instance. It's a great story. It really is. They tried to shut us down.
Yeah, they sure did.
It's a story of resilience. Yeah, it's a story of resilience.
Yeah, I think there's a potential for landmines in that too. It depends on how well you present things. I mean, the flip side is our Episcopal identity is followed by a big list of $5 words like, you know, episcopate and catechism,
That's
things that are
right.
real and good and important.
Yep.
But I mean, Curtis mentioned the situation being inside your four walls. That's inside the four walls, and that can't, words like that have to be put in a different way.
Yeah, you've got to learn to decode some of that language for folks. Yeah.
Take down those barriers if you're trying to draw
Yeah.
people, or get people to come back a second time, much less the first time.
That's right. The supposedly, I used to tell this to visitors who would show up. I said, you need to come back 3 times. The current wisdom is to know if we're for you. And they actually believed me. I mean, it's true. It was really true. Other people said that, and they would come back 3 times. You know, I said, you know, just give us a chance 2 more times for you to figure out the books, because we were so
Books and the kneeling up and down.
That's right, and all that stuff. All right. I'm just trying to think what else we might talk about. I'll give you one. Here's a freebie. It's about a change process. This is easy. So one of the things the college does is teach a variety of change processes. One of them I have adapted for use in the church, and I use Benedict listening process in that. This isn't this one. So it's not really a process.
Sorry.
It's a formula. It's very easy to use. And I think it's really helpful. I was thinking about this diocese and this change formula. So it looks like a math formula, doesn't it? It's using a formula as a way to express something about some elements. So this is change equals dissatisfaction, or you could say readiness, times vision, times first steps is greater than the natural human tendency to resist. What this is saying is what? So if any of these these have to be, if any of these are in the positive realm, you're in trouble. So so dissatisfaction can be readiness, vision can be short, small, it's priorities, and first steps. You need all 3 of these to overcome what is the natural human tendency to resist change. People aren't bad, they just don't like change very much. And so change means these 3 things have to be paid attention to. So like, is the system ready? So you've just spent 3 and something years getting the system ready. That's my impression. For many things, not just congregational development or congregational vitality and viability. There's been a visioning process, has there not? And new bishop has already articulated some priorities in that. The question is this one. And you've already actually taken some first steps. The faith X stuff is a step. What are the other first steps?
Well, I think we did that. We started that last year with having Walker come, not only at the for the Joint Standing Committee Diocesan Council retreat, but also at the clergy gathering, just to get people thinking about what their taking a
Yes.
snapshot of their numbers. Do you know that this has been your
Yes.
trend? Kind of thing, to try to get people to open up a little bit about
Yes.
kind of where they are.
Yeah,
And then with FaithX, it's to give us that next step, also to give the new bishop a Bible about, here's the snapshot of where we think we are right now.
The one thing I struck by this, I used to be a math major once upon a time in my life. Each of those factors is multiplicative, which means that any one of them, if it gets outsized, really has a geometric as opposed to a linear effect on the formula. And so
that's right.
one factor going up or down can quickly overwhelm the other.
If any of them are zero, it can't overcome this. If any of them are zero. And that's what it's really trying to say. If any of them are zero.
In your chart of discovery of how, in the sense of dissatisfaction is your first one.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the sense of the bombs in the room. Part of that process is healing. So, I don't think we need to deal with personal, professional, and pastoral healing enough. I don't think we do that. I think we talk around it, but there are people among ourselves that we feel professional anger or disappointment. We have personal issues, and then we don't know how to get to the pastoral issues either, or disappointment because something happened. How do we do that as on both diocesan and the parochial level to do that? So how do we address that? I'm not sure we address that really well, because if we are still having issues of being issues against the diocese, it's not just our last bishop, it's the bishops before that. I hear stories of Buchanan, I was never around.
Yeah.
And things that people are still hurting and disappointment. So there's this whole way of how do we do that with acknowledging and speaking to it.
Yeah.
And we don't have to know the particulars, but we need to put it away somehow, or give people a process to get back to it. I don't think we've done that well. My parents doesn't do it well. And where I work, we struggle with grief all the time. It's the biggest thing that prevents people from true healing to get ready to die.
Yeah.
Is grief, unresolved grief.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's tough because you both want to be able to, some people can't tell you. They can't articulate it. It's down there so much around the assumptions about the diocese.
But they tell me when they say, I'm not going to a diocesan bit.
Yes.
Or I'm not gonna do this like when we ask for, how do we get involved with gifts to the bishops saying goodbye?
Yeah.
Or some saying, oh no, what did they do for me? Like,
Yeah.
well, where have you been the last 3 years?
Yeah.
But anyway, but it's things like that, because it's stemming from something else.
Well,
It's
I
never
would,
been.
Yeah.
I would say that's because each of us have our own icebergs.
And that's the first one.
And I think if we're not doing our own work of recognizing our whys and articulating them, whatever, for good or for bad, then we are gonna only see an outside force as not doing what we think we wanted to do in relationship to what's happening superficially. And I think these bodies, the governing bodies, are the bodies that can be, we can't do that work for someone individually, we can only do it as a diocese as a whole, knowing that eventually will bring more people.
So we demonstrate the ritual in a whole group of a larger thing.
That and
Reconciliation.
momentum and healing catches. We think of it as so individualized, and it is in our culture, but momentum catches. So there's a whole theory of, about critical mass, that how you start with a particular group of people, could be this group of people, who are behind something, and it filters out, because we're organically connected.
So have you worked in dioceses that had to deal with their iceberg?
My own. Diocese of Olympia.
Okay, so.
But what I learned was, well, people were,
There
there was a high level of trust because I was from that diocese. I would say different groups had different willingness to talk about it. The staff talked about it quite a lot. Individual clergy talked about it quite a lot. Lay people, not so much, because it didn't affect them as much as it did clergy. And I did not, my modus operandi is momentum. That's what I know I'm good at. So what I did was create positive momentum and people just came with it. And then at the time they were able to talk about it, they did. So I did a lot of it one-on-one. That's not a systemic approach, but the momentum approach was.
We don't want to have people get stuck either. We want the moment to go forward, so we gotta be careful not.
That's right.
It's not needed, so we don't get stuck.
That's right. So I think in a lot of parishes where trauma has happened, there's this whole thing about, do we need to have this big listening sessions about that? And my experience has been relatively few people come unless it's something really egregious.
We've done that.
You know, relatively few people come. And then it's sort of like, oh, okay. And then it's a matter of will the leader kind of get the right people around them to move in a positive direction so that people can feel like they're on a, you know, they're moving in a positive direction. But that's my bias, I have to say. Those are the lenses I typically have on. But yeah, so interesting. Wow. You've got a great job.
I know.
Is there one more? So let me just say something about the college because, so the college is not everybody's, it's not an answer to something. So helping people learn participative method and frameworks and all of this, some of which you've seen, I don't know how to read it. I wrote it this afternoon. It's not for everybody. But what the college is kind of core training and congregational development and methods of facilitation and engagement. It works. Some people send diocesan leaders like canons to the ordinary and things so that they can help that happen. It's a comprehensive training program. I said this twice. It's theological, biblical, theoretical, and practical. What's different about it is this part. Other dioceses have done other things and they're either here, just here, using just stuff from business, you know, they're rarely here. So that's what's different about it. It works on 3 levels, the individual, the group or team, and the system. So people reflect on themselves. They give and receive feedback. It's frightening, but they give and receive feedback to each other. We learn about how to work effectively in groups and teams fruitfully and how to look at and address whole system issues. There are currently 10 dioceses and 1 province in the Anglican Church of Canada doing it. And people that go are congregational teams and individuals attend, but it's best with a team from like a clergy person or clergy people and lay leaders as well. That's what that is.
As someone who's been through a year of it,
Yes.
I would say that one of the best things about it is practicing what you're learning right away.
Yes.
Not go back and practice this, it's here, you get an opportunity to practice this right now. And that way you're able to take it in and really do it when you get back.
That's right. So if we present a theory, then they go to groups and teams and they facilitate a group. People facilitate right away, right after 5 minutes of coaching. Oh my God. And then again, a team might be like 3 different congregations represented. And they work the theory through the lens of something practical, like something actually going on in a congregation or a case. Not my favorite thing, but I wrote the cases, so I have to like them. And then they come back and more stuff happening. We do rather intensive work using the Myers-Briggs typology indicator. Most people in the Episcopal Church have done that. We do it at a level, we do it at 201 level that people haven't often done it before. And yeah, so it's quite the thing. Let's see. What other questions or anything anybody has?
I mean, again, part of this is to get this combined group on one page about what this is before we go in tomorrow. Because between FaithX and of course your new bishop-elect already took 1 year of this. This is a great opportunity to continue to build on the work that has already been done by these 2 combined groups. and continue to bring it forward to the glory of God, because this is a great diocese. It really is a great diocese. I get to hear all the other bishops bitch and moan about their diocese, and, I've had my moments here, but for the most part, it's like, this place is glorious. And you all have a lot of good opportunities to continue to grow, but you have to do it together and not at odds with one another.
She does brag about you.
I have the
One
best
question.
diocese in the Episcopal Church.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead,
Chris.
go, Chris.
I thought I heard a second voice. One question that don't know how related it is. It's getting at what people bring in, what they come in with. Have you noticed anything about a trend or whatever the word is, the people coming to the Episcopal Church, if they're more likely to come from being not church at all or from other traditions?
From other traditions.
Okay.
It's almost always the same stories of coming from the two ends, either Roman Catholicism or Orthodox, not as much, but often folks who have been a part of a religious tradition, more evangelical in nature, and have discovered the Episcopal Church as the best kept secret that they've ever run into.
Could I ask you to give me the name of the book? You said she was a Jewish woman that became Christian.
Simone Weil, yeah.
Baptized.
Yeah, Simone Weil, yeah.
That's an interesting story.
It is.
Question, yes, I don't know.
Yeah, she's something. And so, yeah. Gravity and Grace is a book, and there's another, yeah. But even in Seattle, Chris, which is terribly unchurched, if we would call it that, we didn't get people who came from no church background. We didn't get that at all.
It is some of the entry barrier that we're gonna talk about, that we have a language, while it is our own, at least we share enough of it with other people that they can come in and at least have some foundation in in Episcopal speak, for want of a better word.
And just so in Seattle, it's the church of the outdoors, It's hiking and it's doing stuff like that, so they would never even dream. Unless, an exception would be death in the family, a marriage where a family member said it, you ought to do it in the church, or something like that. That would be the exception. Wow. So, if, I don't know what your experience is that who shows up? If you have a new person show up, are they typically from some kind of Christian tradition? They're just, they heard about, that somebody told them about, maybe they're the family member of somebody. And typically they do give you feedback about why they're there and why they're staying. Yeah, Joe.
I could say, just when we were talking about, and again, maybe I don't understand the whole use of the word product and everything, right? When we were talking about what's our product and how do we sell it, like in southern Missouri anyway, right? At sort of the top of the Bible Belt there. I always find people come to Grace, they enjoy coming to Grace and they keep coming back to Grace Episcopal Church from the evangelical expression, because we have the liturgy, we have that more sort of, I guess you would say, conservative structure and deep roots and everything. So, I have found anyway, in my own context, I have found what works best for growth and vitality for our congregation is to be who the Episcopal Church historically has been, and not try to be anything other than common prayer.
And for some clergy, they're bored. But I found the same thing. If we can do the fundamental things well, it's like we have a place to stand.
That's it.
When we are trying to chase after other more successful ecclesial traditions, we get lost.
We lose our identity.
And it's just not what we do well. So we tripled in size in 9 years, and I was part-time in the parish. Part-time. We tripled in size in 9 years. And what the evangelicals told me, they said, you could have grown faster if you'd had more back rows. Because they wanted to come and sit on the back row. Because the structure of the liturgy made them feel safe. And, you know, cult of the personality, I mean, we had Mars Hill, if you've heard of that debacle in Seattle, you know, kind of the cult of the personality, abusive, male leaders, oh gosh, financially ripping the congregation off, often involved, you know, with women, and they needed a place to be safe. To be safe.
That's our problem, is we don't have enough scandals in our church.
We sure don't. But it's,
We just don't talk about it.
so congregational development is having these conversations and helping people. So when somebody shows up and I'm at the door and Tim is my priest, Tim, stand up. I know, I'm gonna make him. That's right.
Good job.
And so when I show up and it's like we're at the door and you're asking me, what are you asking me? I'm brand new here.
Welcome. How did you find us?
Exactly. And then I start telling my story. You know, I'm just this member of this Mars Hill Church, and it's really hard for me to talk about it, but I was looking for, and I'd heard about everything that Tim can articulate at the right time some of these things that make us who we are. Thank you, Tim. I didn't even ask you to, you know, that you're ready. You've heard the story enough that you can, or that Shirley can say, you know, this congregation, you wouldn't believe the story of this congregation.
Well, you wouldn't believe it.
You know, they try to shut us down, like, where? Or someone tried to shut us down, not the diocese.
Surely that's a 50-year-old story, right? Shut you down,
No, it's
right?
about.
No, yeah,
15, really?
yeah, but there's another happening. But
Yeah.
And they weren't even allowed into the Diocese of West Missouri until 1950.
Yeah.
They were in the
That's what
Diocese
I
of
was
Missouri.
thinking.
Yeah, our foundational stories were the following at St. Paul, Seattle. One, it was the only place in the city that offered funerals for people who died of AIDS.
Wow.
In fact, it was so early on in that pandemic that that people were afraid they'd get infected by coming in the building. And then they bought one vestry bought, they're kind of right in the Space Needle in Seattle, bought land kind of at the top of one of Seattle's hills in what I would call Seattle Mayberry, urban Mayberry. And a rector came in and said, no, we're selling that property, we're staying in the city. Those were our two identity stories. And when somebody had been at St. Paul's for maybe had come back for that third time, they'd heard those two stories, or the two stories I told at the newcomers gatherings that we had every month, rain or shine. 2 people or 20 people, we had them. So it's kind of like congregational identity as grounded in the best part of Episcopal identity. That's your reason for being in Christ, you know, and that's what God is using us for, to invite people more deeply into the life of Christ for us.
And you know, Tim really said it differently. I won't say it, but I think the Episcopal Church creates a safe place.
Yes.
A place of non-judgmental. And we know that all learning has to be led in leadership development. You use
Yes.
that, right? So basically, anybody to be able to grow and be present, safety has to be there.
Yes.
Non-judgmental, ability to be listened to and grow. And that's that's our stardom. That's why I think we're going to be successful continue on, because we're naming those things. And you did it indirectly. We don't have no scandal. Well, it's safe. And then we own our stuff. So it creates an environment of welcome and non-judgmental. So people show up. I think we have done that, and there's people, you pay a lot of money to learn those 3 things.
Yes.
Safety, teaching, and non-judgmental.
I would push back on the non-judgmental.
Which
I actually think we're pretty judgmental.
Well, I was thinking about learning happens with non-judgmental, but
I mean, if
think
someone walked
my
in here with a
congregation-
MAGA hat,
what?
if someone walked in here with a MAGA hat, I'm serious, like I don't,
Say,
but.
let's go to Grace.
No, but I will say, no, but I mean that,
Yeah, Jamie.
you say you're from Texas, people judge you. You say you're from Florida, you're gonna get judged. I hear people judging, clergy judging all the time.
I see
So,
it,
I mean,
it's a learning edge, but I know my
I'm
family
just saying, I
prides
think it-
themselves on that.
I'm just saying that I don't think we're completely non-judgmental.
Yeah.
I think we have areas of growth, and I think, at least at St. Anne, where we are, we've got people on all sides. And what people like about coming to our place is you are welcome. And you're gonna disagree, and you're gonna have someone sitting here who voted for Harris and the other for Trump. But we are here on Sunday mornings to love one another. And to get to know that person's story, why that person might feel this way and the other one might feel that way. But sorry, it's just, I really get the feeling we're a pretty judgmental church.
Yeah,
For
but
certain,
I think that gets
you did a
to-
full circle though.
But,
Like you did a full circle, you sit here respectfully
Yeah.
and we listen, so that's how you move through non-judgmental statements, and that's what I think.
But I think that's why the question matters so much.
Yes.
Because the question may not be, we want to go from being a judgmental church to a non-judgmental church. The question could be something like, we want to go from being a place that divides to a place that brings people to a common table.
yes.
And then I think when you need clarity about the from to the to, then you can look at that space in between and brainstorm and experiment about what your next steps are. And again, you might not ever get to the common table, right? But instead you make a choice and you try that out and it works or it doesn't work. One of the things I'm interested in terms of congregational development, vitality, viability, is how do we walk with communities that see themselves as being in decline because there's 7 of them.
Right.
And how do we retell that story or listen to their story and help it be narrated in a way so that they can maybe begin to see themselves as a new kind of church plant,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So that instead of them being in decline, they're actually on the edge of being reborn.
Yeah.
That's the question I'm curious about. And some of this in terms of Episcopal identity, I think could be really key about that.
Yeah.
Because it helps you see like, what is it that I have in my community that makes me particular, that then is gonna have people come and sit on that back row,
Yes.
whether I judge them or not. And that maybe then eventually I find myself moving into that.
Yeah.
Well, and I really think, that we really could be a model, at least this is what I share with parishioners that I talk to, that people are looking for a place where they can come in difference. They are looking for
That's right,
it,
because
right?
most of they don't have it.
Yes, and so it is okay that.
The whole profile said, meet me in the middle.
Right, and that's our whole middle way, and so, I mean, that's.
Yeah, more than once.
I hear you articulated your congregation, what are the reasons for being. Yes.
And I have found that to acknowledge that judgmentalism and take it head on and say to the congregation, and I have preached this from the pulpit more than once, one of the things that makes me the most proud to be the rector of my parish is the knowledge that we do have people that are strongly on this side and strongly on that side, no matter what the issue is. And yet we find a way, we maybe don't talk about these things one-on-one, but we find a way, we acknowledge that the difference is there.
Yes.
And we maintain, at times tenuous, but we maintain a sense of balance.
Yes.
And that's, if we did a better job of articulating that in our community, that would help our growth.
The altar is the great equalizer.
Yes. Yeah, I say.
I think it's more than also just balance, but also it is about unity. It is coming together around something central. It's not merely finding the two extremes and trying to keep them at 50-50. It is, well, why are we gathered here?
Yes.
We're gathered here around this reason.
Yes.
So the reason's Jesus, but
Yes.
we're gathered here around this reason. So those other things, yes, they impact us.
Yes.
But those aren't the reasons we
That's
gather.
right.
You know, I was just thinking, I was saying to Joe earlier, one of the best evangelists in my parish is a 19-year-old. Was just confirmed 2 weeks ago. And she has been bringing more and more people to church. She's a CNA.
Yeah.
And when she's started asking to be off on Sundays, some of the other nurses were like, you still go to church? Why do you go to
What's
church?"
that about? Yeah.
And, and it's just brought up their church hurt, from wherever it comes from. And she said, come over, but come to my church. Like, we're not gathered around. So we're not gathered around this.
Yeah.
She said, one of my favorite things is to say my priest is gay, and then watch the look on their face, and then say, but we have just as many, Republicans in the group as well, and we all come together and we're a family. And she just mentions that in her everyday 19-year-old vocation, and brings people to church from it. She's bringing 3 more this Sunday. She just texted me today.
Well, and it's, I was thinking about, so I teach at Vancouver School of Theology with the Episcopal and Anglican students in Anglican studies, and we were talking about being countercultural in this time. Remember the church's growth when it was countercultural, the early church. And some of the things that it did, providing social services, providing women in leadership, no infanticide like the Romans did, leaving babies out on the hillside, and the death of martyrs. Certainly, Mary and Buddy, the death of martyrs, happily going, those were the factors that grew the church exponentially in its early days. So this countercultural moment for the Episcopal Church is a good one, I think, for these very reasons, like a place where that can hold the middle around an important thing. Yeah. Okay, it is about, Bishop Diane told me it may be 8:30 we would finish. So what I'd like to do, anybody can pass on this question. Oh yes, is there somebody? Yes, Phil, yeah.
You talked about the new person gatherings that you do monthly. Can you tell us a little bit about the structure of those, and do you do them after church on Sundays, and kind of what do you cover at those?
So what I did, I made it as easy on me as I could. They were held at my little bitty house on the top of Queen Anne Hill. Someone else brought the food. I invited newcomers. So I had a little card printed that I had in my pocket. So every newcomer that came, I gave them the invitation to the next. It was like a business card. My address, I guess that's dangerous, right? My address, the time and the place of the newcomer gathering was done on an evening for an hour and a half only. Only an hour and a half. People arrived, eating, drinking, have fun, in the tiny house. I even let children jump on my bed if they came with their parents, whatever. Anyway, whatever. I was, and then we'd I'd ring the bell, we'd all get in a circle. Newcomers would say how long they had been coming to St. Paul. Someone would say, we haven't been yet. We haven't been yet, but we're coming to you first. Others, it'd be like 2 Sundays. And then we had invited longer timers from the congregation to be there too. So then they would say how long they'd been at which ministry they were in charge of. And we would go around, and I would say something about the identity of the parish, like Episcopal kind of stuff, as well as the reason for being of that particular parish. Beauty is a gateway to God, silence and chanting, diversity of peoples, commitment to the city, all that stuff. And then as people would listen to folks in charge of ministries, they would then want to connect with them. And so we had like 30 more minutes to do that. And then people left, others cleaned up, and that was it, hour and a half, without fail every month. And again, we tripled in size in 9 years. So it was gradual, but it was from 89 ASA, 30 of whom were in the choir, to 275, going from 2 liturgies to 5.
Part-time.
But this is about the engagement thing. We had town meetings where people got to hold forth. We assessed everything. Nothing was done. I didn't make decisions except kind of decisions only the rector had to make. I didn't make any of that alone. It was really about shared decision making, and that created the momentum and the participation. And we created a structure, a membership growth task force that looked at the website, the newcomers gatherings, what happened on Sunday morning. My parish, the thing that they said is like, when newcomers come, well, we don't want to talk to them. And I said, well, why? They said, because we don't like people talking to us. Because they were deeply introverted. So we did a whole training session on how to talk to newcomers by simply asking questions of them. Like, how is it that you come here today? Rather than having to do a lot of talking. So it's a really comprehensive, it was kind of using that map in a lot of ways at a parish level. Here you go. Okay. From this I feel like I've been driving around in a convertible, you know, with the hair going like this. What's one thing you'll take away from this conversation? Just think for a minute about that. What's one thing from this meeting? And we'll start in the room first and then on the Zoom room. And anybody can pass. Think just for a second about it. We're going to start at that table.
I feel like as a diocese, we have made first steps into some of these things already. Through Bishop Diane's guidance, we've stuck our feet in and we're pretty committed to getting in fully. But just first steps, and I feel like even in our own my congregation, we also are making those first steps towards these things. And so I see momentum.
You took mine, but I will say, just going all the way back to the beginning, vitality and viability as two separate but related concepts. That's where my mind keeps spinning. The pairing of the two.
Yeah, I was gonna say the vitality, viability, but I guess then that narrative really matters.
Me, it probably always has been the centrality of our Episcopal identity and how we communicate that.
The piece about, I forgot what the proper title of it was, but the hairball.
Yeah.
The idea of having all those things in tension, I think a growing edge for myself, but I also think most is hyperfixation. Because it gets results, but they're not sustainable. So, you know, I'm excited about learning more about that. And a lot of the concepts that we've been talking about feel very similar to conscious discipline, which is working with children, but it's kind of like, oh, well, duh, it's transfer, because everything's transferable when you work with children. So, because if you work with a kindergarten, yeah, and it all, but sorry, next.
Sorry.
Tagging on to Anne's, I actually think one of our first steps in your piece was our zero budget. Because it forced us to collectively identify and name our priorities. And then put our money where our mouth was.
Yeah, and it's kind of like back up to that strategy thing. That's really strengthened that part of the hairball. Yeah.
Gosh, what keeps coming to my mind is at the diocesan level, like I can picture all of this at a congregational level, but as like a governing body and doing this work. So just kind of wrestling with how that applies more broadly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Back to using scandal to our benefit. No. Discipleship really is attainable if you've got some sense of a shared goal and some, at least some road marks of a plan.
Owning and celebrating our identity. Whether that's parochial, episcopal, whatever the case may be, diocesan, all those levels.
I would say for me, I just took the assessment this week.
Yes.
I have very little voice, and so a lot of those questions kept coming back to me as we talked. And one thing that really hit me as I took the assessment were the questions about identifying from spiritual gifts or strengths in people as they become part of your community and connecting them, kind of like you were talking about at that newcomers group, and people gravitating toward ministries. And so that's been the ongoing question for me, is how do you make people feel like they're part of a community? And that's by finding things within them that make them want to be, like we talked about earlier, in leadership or lead a group or do whatever. You have to connect them with the right thing. And so that's the question that's been on top of my mind since I took the assessment this week.
Thank you.
And I would say the clarity about it being Episcopalian and the identity that we show across the world, across the city, and our diversity that we have to own up to.
Yeah. How about you, Bishop-elect?
I'm gonna be
Bishop?
spinning, I'm thinking a lot about the iceberg. That's helpful for me. Thank you.
I think I agree that the question matters can be from too. And so discovering more about that.
I think I'm at a combination where Isaac and Jean were, and in the sense that I think if I've always pictured viability, vitality to be a circular thing, one feeds the other.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that our diocese probably is better in one of those areas than the other. I think we're probably can deliver viability things better than we can vitality things, just based on limited fiscal resources. So if it's not a circle, then what does that mean if we're going to be better at one thing than the other? How does that play out? And that's probably more a council question than a standing committee question. But it's trying to play those things together, and I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with that.
I like the question, the questions matter.
Great. Okay, Zoom room. Again, anybody can pass. Phil, one thing you'll take away.
Why are you picking on me?
You're top left. You're the top left on our screen.
You've been talking to the bishop again, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
A couple things, and I'm kind of a nuts and bolts. What can I get out of this and take back?
Yeah.
And one of them is when you were doing the little practice meeting somebody, and because I like to talk to new folks after church, but the question coming up of how did you find this and what brought you here today? For some reason, I never thought of that, and it's a real good way to break the ice with folks instead of what do you do and where do you live. I thought that was an excellent question. And then I also liked your new person's monthly meetings because when I was at St. John's in Neosho, we had I think it's the 7 touches or something, that if you have 7 interactions with folks, then they're very likely to become a member. And where it's having someone meet them in the parking lot, greet them when they come in, talk, say hi to them during the piece, talk to them after the service, and that would be kind of like one of the touches that would really kind of drive things home for them, where they could ask questions about the church and kind of feel part of the group, and kind of close the deal, so to speak. So, and like I said, I'm kind of a boots on the ground kind of guy. So those are 2 points that, to me, I wrote them down, and I can see where we could probably use those pretty quickly at St. Philip's. So.
Thank you, Phil. Chris.
Yeah, this is kind of a nice reminder that there's a lot of creativity in the church. I mean, in this diocese now, the broader church, a lot of experience and a lot of brains that are certainly willing to be picked to help us and others know what has worked and what hasn't worked, where the landmines might be, and things like that, so we don't have to reinvent every wheel.
Thank you, Regina.
I was intrigued by the historical observation about how the church has grown when we were countercultural. And we have a perfect opportunity to be countercultural. I see so much misconception about what organized religion is by people who have been hurt by it. And right now, I think being countercultural is saying, guess what? It doesn't matter who you voted for. Let's sit together at the Lord's table and solve the problems we know we have in common. And I think Bishop Booth's sermon at the inaugural prayer service was just an amazing start.
Thank you. Anne?
This may be slightly derivative, but what I will take away from this meeting is this is probably the best experience I've had with this diocese in 35 years.
Wow.
The diocese, from everything I have lived through, has sort of been the big spooky building on the hill that was not very interactive, shall we say. And so there was a lot of energy in this room, a lot of positivity. And since I'm seeing a lot of both of those in my own parish, to see it at the diocesan level is very encouraging.
Lovely. Thank you, Anne. Is it Katie?
Yes, it's Kate.
Kate.
Kate, yes.
Kate. All right, Katie, you say Kathleen there, but I want to get it right.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I was really surprised with whoever said, and it may have been you, that said most people that come into our church come from other religions, not unchurched, because I didn't think that, I never thought that. And that's very interesting. And I would like to second what Ann said. I'm looking forward to tomorrow and going into this great energy here.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, I don't have anything new to add. I mean, we're at the point of everything's been said, but not everyone's said it portion of the program. So I'll just say that I think the diocese is in good hands with this leadership group and the energy and the ideas coming out of it.
Thank you. Eric?
Oh, there.
There you go. And there you are.
There you go. I'll echo our chancellor as well. And I'm also thinking about, how do we take what we talked about tonight to the churches that aren't represented on these bodies?
And Chandler?
Thank you.
I didn't do that.
The important, getting the conversation.
It broke it down.
It wasn't you, it wasn't you.
It wasn't you.
Well, if it is, it's all
It
good.
wasn't you.
Yeah. I think you do it. Get out of there.
We're gonna grab your stuff.
Yeah.
Hold on, just 1 second.
No, what? Well. That lets us know what you're doing, Chandler.
Hold on, Chandler.
I know, we're coming back.
We want to hear what you have to say.
It's so rare that these are.
Father Isaac will be the other end.
It lasts forever.
You got it. Look.
I think it was telling us something. Oh my gosh, it was telling us something. I don't know.
I mean,
You did it. That was right.
She did it too.
that's right.
I think it's working.
It's roll call. It is not mine. Yes. Thank you. I love you.
Love you too.
So surprised.
You shocked it, but we were talking. Yeah, that's mine.
She'll be from the chat side.
Yeah, he linked on.
We'll be.
He linked.
Like you have to say.
See the cathedral. Yeah, it came right.
I just want to say real quick, I know that talked about people coming from other denominations. On the Sundays that I preach in my chapel, I speak to people from all kinds of denominations because we televise it in the hospital.
Yes, of course you do. Yeah.
So I'm preaching and doing an Episcopal service for Baptist and Methodist and non-denominational.
Chinese, Buddhist.
Yeah.
See, they're doing the last rites on that table.
Yeah.
Really, it's okay.
Bless his heart. No, well,
Okay,
well, that's one less we have to take down right now.
okay, all right, Chandler.
I figured it was Tim trying to baptize everybody again. I takeaway for me was, you know, we know to get the conversation started by asking questions, but the problem is getting the right questions, the concise question. I think we try to start out with too broad a question, and so the conversation just is a scattershot instead of being focused.
So the challenge is getting getting the right question or getting a more focused question, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything anybody else wants to say after hearing from other people, something that you're taking away? All right, so tomorrow, how many are going to be there tomorrow? Oh, goodness, okay, great. So tomorrow, we will be doing the definition of congregational development, and the congregations will be talking about what out of that definition speaks to them around a developmental call that they feel in their own congregations. And then we'll spend the bulk of the day, I'm going to teach this model from the college that has to do with the core purpose of a congregation called Gather, Transform, Send. And they'll be doing some more specific assessment. It's kind of bigger numbers, so I'm having to modify. Is it still at 70?
It's a little bit under 70.
Okay, all right,
Is that
so
all in person or on, it's being
All
live
in person.
all in
Okay.
person.
Those-
So we'll be doing conversations about all the different aspects of that model to demonstrate, one, that this is a model related to the purpose of a congregation, and to show about engagement, about what it's like to engage in conversation, to assess and to tell stories about our congregation. So it's meant to be a positive kind of thing, but focused really around one model.
And tomorrow we're in Founders?
We are in numbers.
Okay. So let's see, I think Bishop, elected Bishop, not Bishop-elect, you should send us forth. Amy.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, yeah.
I think you should send us forth, pray us
I
forth.
would love to do that. The
Okay.
Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Let us pray. Gracious God, I give you thanks for the opportunity and the privilege to gather here this evening. For the generous offerings of these your servants who give of themselves not only to their church, but most of all to you. I thank you for your presence here with us, for the way that you call us closer towards you and one another, for the ways that you enrich our community and enlighten us into how to be your people. I ask for good sleep, for safety through the night, that when we awake tomorrow, we would be ready to serve in whatever ways you ask of us. And remembering especially those tonight who have no shelter, for those who are suffering, for those who grieve, and for those who work. I offer all these things knowing that you are always working on our behalf by the power of your Spirit and to the glory of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Food to take home,
Yeah,
food to take home. Please, please, please. Please, please.
See the.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're sweet. You're
Yes, it
sweet.
was
Thank
great.
you.
Well.
Yeah,